That's what makes this sport so cutthroat. You got to crush someone else's dreams to make yours come true.
Welcome to the next episode of Grit Rising. Today we have a special guest, a local guy from Long Beach or living in Long Beach now and getting ready for the live on Netflix fight on May 16th. This is Jake Babian. Thanks for joining me today.
Hey, nice to meet you, man. Thank you for having me on.
You got it. What makes you want to get in the ring and fight somebody?
It's honestly just like chasing that kind of competitive edge ever since a child. One thing just turned into another, and I don't know, just seemed to kind of fall into my hands and really enjoy it.
Yeah, you're 6-1 now. Is that
6-1? Yes.
All right, trying to go 7-1 here on this next fight.
That's the game plan.
You grew up doing sports,
Yeah.
but nobody grows up doing like MMA. So tell me a little bit where that sports kind of led to where you are today.
Well, originally, I was born in Big Island, Hawaii, and I can say the culture out there is kind of, grow up scrappy a little bit. It's kind of tough, but I had my own little clique out there, and we kind of did our thing. We'd always spend a lot of time boxing. I was in wrestling, just getting into trouble. And again, one thing turned into another, kind of just pursuing that over the years and honing in the skills, training at an actual gym. So that's when you make all the difference, actually putting like some structure behind it. And yeah.
Nice. We had Henry Cejudo on last year, and for him, it was a cool story about, that was his way out, right? Wrestling was his way out, and obviously had a lot of success, him and his brothers. But for you, what was it that made you say, this is what I want to do in my life?
I did make the choice back in, I'd say it was about 2018. I started doing jiu-jitsu after high school and got into kickboxing and boxing, and sure enough, ended up getting an opportunity to move out here. That's where I landed, out here in Long Beach, take care of my grandpa, and fell into the team body shop, and just a couple of amateur fights. We knew we had something to work with, and a lot of really good local support, community backing, kind of just pushed that drive, and things started to take off, and then I really said, this is what I'm gonna do, and I quit my job and just kind of put everything towards that.
Your parents, when you said I'm quitting my job, what did they say?
So they're kind of on board with it. I've got again, good support and stuff just on the back end with the fighting. So it's pretty much all I do. I don't really have too much outside distractions.
Yeah.
Financially and stuff too. I try to keep my ducks in a row. Parents have been good mentors and stuff with that over the years as well.
Fighting, specifically in UFC, where you have, that no quit, fear of failure. Walk through, if you were to go back in time, tell me, where do you think you got that instinct that's I'm willing to take a punch and come at you even harder?
Well, I think I got to credit a lot to not only growing up in Hawaii, where they've got that warrior spirit, but I'm Armenian on my dad's side, and they've faced a lot of adversity in their culture over the years, and they say the strong survive. So I think that has a lot to do with it. I think it provides good athleticism, good mental durability, and it's meet a lot of good people in that community too. I think you may know Glendale out here.
Yeah.
Just getting in touch with that Armenian community. We didn't have that in Hawaii, so that's nice.
So you feel like you're sticking up for a bigger group of people?
Yeah, for sure.
When you get into that ring, are you ever scared?
I think fear drives a lot of those good performances. I feel like you got your mom and dad sitting out there watching. You don't want to go there and make a fool. At least my mind is just go out there and fight, and the rest will take care of itself.
When you're in that and you're fighting, if you watch you, which I've watched and started to learn more about you, you go from a pretty docile person to a bit of a lunatic, if I may.
Yeah.
What is that? What makes you hit that switch?
Well, I think it's it plays fun. It's a fun play to the character too, because a lot of people are like, oh, you look like, like a punk online or from the portrayal. But like everybody who knows me as like to be a pretty like outgoing and quiet guy. But that switch just comes from channeling that energy. I did face a bit of like bullying and stuff when I was younger, and that drove a lot of like focus towards like wanting to always prove something to somebody, not in a negative way, more of like a competitive way. And yeah, it sure brought out the best of me in that environment.
I was 5 feet 98 pounds as a freshman in high school, and 5'2", 105 as a sophomore. And there's something about either being small or being bullied that takes you and says, I'm going to prove everybody wrong.
Yeah.
It says like, I'm going to get attention from whatever, I'm going to do whatever. That's a deep thing that's not necessarily, you can't just find.
Yeah.
You can't find, and it's unique too, because in today's world, I get like bullying goes too far sometimes and all that, but in today's world where it's so anti-bullying, which I understand that part too, it's like, what does that mean for that next generation in terms of what's going on? Now I feel a little bit thankful for just being the small kid, and because it definitely had a chip on my shoulder, and I don't know where I'd be without that, but it sucked when it was happening.
Yeah, I love that insight because I can really resonate with you as likewise. But yeah, I think it's kind of funny, if you always have knee pads on, you never scrape your knee, that kind of sense of comfort or safety. It's like almost becomes an illusion. And I like to say you can't necessarily pay for those experiences. You can't walk into a store and buy those childhood memories of getting bullied or, going home upset, or parents ask, what's wrong? I don't want to talk about it,
Yeah.
And I think that does pay its dividends down the line.
Yeah, it's crazy how the unhealthiness of what happened to us can give us grit that creates a healthier long-term approach to what we're doing.
Yeah.
In fighting, though, so much of this can come down to seconds. You're 6-1, hopefully going 7-1, but if you have a couple bad fights in a row, from a missed technique or run into a bad kick, your whole career changes pretty quickly there.
Yeah.
So that grit has to be that start with the training. Tell me a little bit about your training, what you're doing.
So like you said about, it just takes one mistake to take you off course. And fighting, it's like sailing into the middle of the ocean with no idea where you're going. There's no guarantee, with the career and stuff. So it's a big deal when you go all in, such as I did with like completely investing into myself. Because I look at myself as like a startup business, a brand. And that goes hand in hand with the training now. So you get as much as you put into it. And for me, when I train, I just train to not only be the best, but focus on like what I can do to, break my opponent. Like what styles, what cards I got in the deck that can really apply to the fight, at hand. So it's not always about like having all the kicks and all the punches and all the wrestling. It's sometimes about dialing it back and learning about how to be efficient as a fighter, controlling the cardio, the gas tank. And I'm a chaotic fighter, so I need to really be mindful about how much strength and conditioning I do. On top of that, we taper down on diet, so it's a lot of factors and stuff. And the training, it's fight camp right now. It's tough, man. It's tough. But
what weight do you train at, and what weight do you fight at?
So I do walk around pretty heavy outside of camp. I'd say I've been around 200 before. However, I during fight camp and stuff, I try to maintain like 185 pounds,
And then you'll fight in May.
Yeah, cut down to 170.
170?
Yeah.
Is that the limit?
Yeah, we try to keep the body healthy and stuff and do everything within the California state guidelines. I gotta say that. But, there's like hydration protocols and stuff, and it's just part of the sport. Everybody's got to, but as long as like you follow the guidelines and stuff, you're usually pretty safe. So.
Yeah.
We work with a nutritionist and a meal prep company. Shout out Prime Field Kitchens. But they've been really cool with like having something to eat first thing in the morning when I come home from training. Got another meal there. I mean, it's kind of a game changer for me at the moment for fight camp. You know.
Yeah, it's when I ran, it was unique because you're broke and the best services don't necessarily, they cost money. So as you're going into this training and, you know, you haven't made, you know, UFC yet, hopefully going that way. And I think what Jake Paul's doing with kind of minimum fight pay is really, really cool for the sport. But how do you kind of find a way to get the nutrition, to get the recovery, to get all those things?
So, yeah, I got anxiety thinking about the schedule now. The whole structure of the week is just like it's like my fight style. It's chaos. You know, we got first thing in the morning. Oh, I also train clients. I got every day. I got about 2 clients. Train in the morning, and the afternoon. So, but I train twice a day, having to have the meals, the sleeping schedule, and all that stuff. And it just comes down to time management. You know, like just being good with your time. I think we could all relate to that one because a few days can cost you sometimes a week, especially when you're coming down to the seconds in the fight.
Yeah.
You know, it's all about just being ahead.
With the amount of distractions that come at us on a daily basis, how do you stay that dialed in?
I think the pain of the regret of not being disciplined and the pain of losing is harder than, you know, the pain of discipline.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's just kind of one thing that
I like
feels
that.
me
The
right
pain
there.
of losing is harder than the pain of
Yeah.
discipline.
Or I could say the pain of regrets, you know.
Yeah.
Because when you get in there, it's like the most honest sport. Like you could tell your coach you've been training and you've been running and you've been doing this and that, but it all comes to show when you get under those lights. So I like that honesty, you know.
It's what drove me to running. You know, you're either faster than a guy or you're not faster than a guy.
Yeah.
Soccer field, you know, somebody could say, we like him, he plays better in this role or whatever, or the ref does something. But in fighting and in running, it's like you're better than somebody or you're not. And you're going to walk out at the end of that race, the end of that fight, and you're going to know who's best there.
There's no team to carry you through that. So it's an individual sport. And yeah, my respect for running because, you know, I've a lot of those cross-country athletes and stuff I've trained with, man, have such a similar, you know, aerobic base for their gas tank and stuff. But I'm always trying to, you know, stay busy and running. And tell me a bit, again, how many miles you be running, what you do.
I'm running 60 to 70 miles a week right now.
60 to 70, that's
Yeah.
insane.
So like I woke up this morning and ran about 7.5 miles. Today was an easy day. Yesterday was a little bit harder. Tomorrow will be a hard day. So 2 days a week I'm running hard.
Okay.
The rest of the time I'm running, as you call it, like the zone 2, zone 3 stuff. And then a long run 1 day a week, which, you know, that's tough too because when you're doing too much of that, the slow twitch fibers start to come in. So you're balancing that fast twitch and also gaining the endurance, which is a fine line there. And so with your sport being fairly new, I mean, obviously you have to go back to like horse Gracie and jiu-jitsu, and a lot of those guys had success first in jiu-jitsu and wrestling. You see the wrestling's like the core to it. As the sport evolves, how much are you think you're a student of the sport versus I'm just going to go in there and kick somebody's ass?
How much am I a student of the sport? Man, I couldn't state more how much. I'm just barely scraping the surface. And, you know, I've traveled the world. I've trained at different gyms, been to different places, you know, seen different coaches. And, man, like, I could say that the more you know, the less you know. Because just right when you think you got it, there's a whole nother door that opens. And I find that to be really fascinating because a lot of the clients I train, especially people from ground zero, they get to see their progression like live. You know, it's like, okay, you got this, you can work on that. You can actively improve over a week or days, you know, and I think that's something that really drives me and others It's that feeling of progression, that feeling of like acknowledging success, so to say.
Yeah.
Like just accomplishing something.
As you look at age, physical ability, what's your next 2 years? That's like your window, right?
So I would say that most men, so I'm 28, most men in my weight class, 35 is usually the peak where they've gotten, 32 to 35 is the peak of wisdom, technique, and athletic ability. But you kind of got like a 10-year time clock in terms of like damage and stuff. So when you start actually training and competing, I think that's the real window people got to look at. A lot of guys start at 18, 19, they start competing 23, whatever. But I've been very fortunate not to accumulate a lot of damage and stuff. And over time, I think that can generate, especially with recovery, taking care of your body, that it can generate more longevity in your career. You hear people say it all the time, but it only gets more and more real as you start to accumulate injuries or this or that,
Yeah, you got 30 days from today, right? Is that what the countdown? 29 days from today. How much does your training change in the last 29 days?
So we did about a 6-7 week camp. As soon as we got the call, I just started training. But the thing is, I've never stopped training. I've always been living by a code of stay ready so you don't have, stay ready so you don't have to get ready. And that's, kind of paid itself back with this, for instance. I went into camp healthy, on weight, in shape, good cardio. So everything's been a breeze, and I could really just hone into focusing on the game plan, what we need to do. Because it's not an easy task at hand. I'm facing one of the top-ranked guys out of the Middle East, so I need to make sure that I put my best foot forward, for the next 29 days. And it even comes down, again, to the seconds, like how you're spending your time and what you're doing. You could be, there's a lot of guys, man, and it breaks my heart to see, but like skipping jiu-jitsu class at night or not doing their runs, and these little things become so big at the end of the day. You never want to walk in that cage feeling like not confident. You want to feel like you've done everything, especially for an interview. You want to go out in there, you got everything ready to go.
Recently interviewed the head of U.S. ski team, and Sophie Goldschmidt. She talked about the best athletes in the world because she's been with tennis, she's been with skiing. She's are incredibly selfish towards the goal at hand. Talk a little bit about the next 29 days and even the last 60 days of how selfish you have to be as an athlete to accomplish what you want to accomplish.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. I actually like to share some insight to that. It's I've been doing this I made my pro debut 2024, 2024, March. And since then, it's been really hard to have or maintain a outside relationship. Sometimes you gotta turn down weddings, birthday parties, including your own. I've skipped out on Thanksgiving dinner, and then the fight felt. There's these little things.
As long as you didn't skip out on your own wedding, that'd be awkward,
right? The relationship things, though, it's tough because you feel like you need to put all this stuff for you. You have to be so selfish for yourself, right? And everyone's wants to provide and help and support, but then it's unfair for your partner. You don't get to contribute as much as they deserve at times and stuff. Or it's everyone gathers to the fight, but then you're not going to their birthday or their party. There's these factors, and don't get me wrong, I try to make it out to every event possible.
Yeah.
But there's also the risk of getting hurt, or there's career-changing injuries. If you miss a day of training, I think that selfishness is it's just unavoidable. You either are all in or you're all out.
Usually that comes from that all-in mentality. I go to a Kobe and what he was willing to do and how he trained. Probably my favorite athlete of all time to watch go through that preparation.
100%.
Do you have hero or guys like that you go, that's the mentality I want to have? Because as you build out Jake the Barbarian, your character, as well as what you're doing, your training method, your focus in terms of being the very best that you can, who are some of the guys that you think you model after?
I mean, celebrity-wise, that's a good question.
And they don't have to be celebrities. It can
Yeah.
be.
Oh, I mean, I think more of the morals I look at are like things that you do when no one's looking, like integrity. Um, I like loyalty, man. Like I always say, like I couldn't do business with somebody who cheats because imagine what they would do to me. You know, like I like very driven people, and I guess I could say that I look up to the like what's my in terms of fighting and stuff, like Chael Sonnen. He was I liked his character on camera, but his ability to be real. Like if you know Chael, you know he's a good guy. You know.
Yeah.
But his like portrayal on camera and stuff like that, it's all fascinating to me.
Yeah. Loyalty is so critical, so important. I think loyalty though also gets misconstrued sometimes, specifically in athletes, where a lot of times athletes can come from lower income families and that sort of thing, and they believe loyalty is keeping their old friends, around them that want to not necessarily do that. You're out trying to train and do the things that are great, and then all of a sudden you have people that from their past that expect that loyalty. How do you, I know you have a lot of loyalty towards like Hawaii and being from that culture, but when you go back and maybe you guys want to party or guys want to like want something from you because now that you're, how do you balance that?
Yeah, I think that I really love the questions because these are things that are so real and so relatable. It's not so much been my responsibility at this point. I think people have been really supportive and helpful, and they know like they look out for me and stuff. However, there's times where you gotta put some distance between people, and loyalty, having those friends from day one. Are they still those same friends? Do they still line up with your goal or your morals or those things? And sometimes you gotta ask yourself that.
Well, that to be the best, to be a champion, you got to balance that loyalty with that selfishness. And selfish is always a bad connotation. But in athletics and in business, a lot of times, there's a lot of times where somebody will ask me for a meeting that, yes, I want to meet with them, but at the same time, like, I have to be selfish at times too and go, what about my goals? How do I prioritize my goals? And for an athlete that is revered and looked at, you see so many of those distractions come into play of where that comes in. And as you continue to win and you continue to be better, that stress is only going to be better. So you have to make sure you surround yourselves with good people, guys like Billy that are all in and are going to support you and not put you in bad situations too. So yeah. that's going to be a challenge and also fun to watch as a fan, to watch you continue to progress through that.
Yeah, I'd say one thing as a fighter is like find somebody who's got your back, and keep them close, take care of them, stick with them. Like you said about Billy, he's been to every fight, and again, he's introduced me to some amazing people like yourself and Tori, and man, going back to those Crows days, thinking about all of it. No, it's good. Like the circle stays small. It's funny. It's like you never know who's going to be there in the end. And, I started with 15, 20 people here and there. Everybody, it was all fun. But, then things just kind of taper down. And, yeah, it's amazing. It's an amazing experience as a young man, getting to experience it now and early.
Yeah.
Because, you hear about the stories, you hear the metaphors. Your mom can warn you about it all she wants, but it's not until you actually go through it and experience it where you, like, get to feel, like, sometimes maybe a little bit of lonely or a discouragement from betrayal. Or even, like, when you got, you can catch my drift.
Being a selfish athlete is very lonely and can be even more lonely. because you go through this training phase, and then there is a possibility of failure. You know, like the quote about the man in the arena with Theodore Roosevelt's one of my favorite, because you're daring to go be in front of everybody and fail. And where did you spend that time to get to where you are? And so as you continue to stay focused in terms of what your task is, it just gets you closer and closer to that goal every day, and that ultimate victory. And then what's next? If you win, when you win, we'll say, and when you win, what's next?
I mean, I wouldn't play too lightly on the when or if. You know, it's like we know what we signed up for. You know, it's a tough sport. I'm gonna go out there and do my best, and you know, it comes down to the seconds and the timing, and I'm completely confident in my abilities. However, you know, it's about the only thing you can control is your reaction to things. You know, win or lose, like you go out there and make sure you put on the best performance. And that's really what like my focus is. And what's next for me after I go out there and win or put on my best performance, you know, is I intend to see where this promotion goes. I think they've got a really good foundation. I think Jake Paul's doing great. He's paying the fighters well, which is also allowing us to get more resources, train harder, bring in different people for the fight camps. And I mean, we've got some big stars on the card. Ronda Rousey, we've got Nate Diaz, Mike Perry. Like, just the amount of viewership and attention that this card's got, you know, I'm really interested to see where it can go. Maybe it might be something quarterly, maybe something once a year. Right?
The first fight I ever went to, Daryl, who's helped you a little bit, was training BJ Penn, and he was fighting Diaz. And,
flashback, yeah.
And that was, I remember being there, and for some reason BJ stood up and fought him the whole time, like boxed him. And I was, we're all yelling at him, like, what are you doing? Like, why are you boxing Diaz? Like, go wrestle him. But it was one of those moments where BJ was so good at his craft, and I don't know if it was ego or what happened in that day, and it's just interesting in terms of what that looks like now. And the reason I say that is, you have this opponent. How much are you preparing for yourself, and how much are you preparing for that specific opponent? Because you could be the best wrestler, but if you're not prepared for that specific opponent, in that situation, I'd say BJ was a much better. He should have won that fight easily, right? And he put himself in that situation. So how much are you preparing for the opponent you're going against?
So I'm looking at different things. I'm looking at adversity, if it doesn't go my way, if I get cut, what if he decides to wrestle? There's a lot of factors, but main thing is study his footage, find out his patterns, and then break it. You know, what makes him react? What makes him flinch? What does he not like? What does he get hit with a lot? So we put all those together. For me personally, I've put myself in a place multiple times this fight camp where I've never been before. I've tried to break myself mentally, and when I say this, it's hard for maybe some people to understand, but round after round, exhausted, tired, hurt, broken, you know, you got guys on your back pushing your chin, like your nose, you can't breathe, like, you know, your eye hurts, whatever the circumstance may be. Just not giving up in that moment. There's so many ways out: tap, roll over, land, or keep fighting. And I've started to love just going into that place. And outside of fighting, it's made everything in my life easier. Just like dealing with hardships or, you know, obstacles, you know, family issues. Everything has been easier that I've been able to just hone in on this place, you know, kind of take you away a little bit. However, it's good for building character, I'll tell you that.
Character and building character, your one loss, how much of that was like a learning, and how much of that was like to never feel that again?
Yeah, so I would definitely say that once you get to experience your loss early on in the career like I did, which happened multiple times, my first amateur fight and then my first pro fight, which you think you learn from your mistakes the first time. However, you know, again, facing adversity. The only thing I could do was react to it and get better. So a fighter, a lot of people could sit there and mope over the loss, but the next day I was just back on the drawing board, watching the fight, seeing what I could do different, and just got booked up and went back to it. Because it's just like football, man. Sometimes you spend your whole life trying to avoid getting sacked, and you get sacked 3 times in a game. We've seen it almost every single year and every season of football. That's just like fighting. It may not go your way. You may have some close decision losses, but at the end of the day, you just got to build yourself up brick by brick. That's what makes this sport so cutthroat, is you got to crush someone else's dreams to make yours come true. With that mentality, I think a lot of people only put so much into it, because the idea of failing could feel worse than the idea of succeeding.
Yeah. I feel all the time that the fear of failure is stronger than the success.
Mm-hmm.
Success, you almost expect it. At least you should expect it out of yourself, right? Failure is like, what did I do? What I respect so much about this interview today is how much dedication you're putting into avoiding failure, is not allowing things inside your control to control the outcome of the fight. Like everything you're doing to get to that fight and to win doesn't happen all the time, because there's talent, right? And I always tell my kids, hard work always beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And then there's distractions of whatever it is. And for me, I'm an old guy running now, and so there's distractions like business and things, doing a hard workout and getting on a plane. Well, that's different. I'm in a different phase of my career, but eliminating those distractions and being fully focused on the goal is not easy. I mean, that's why there's only a handful of pros that are going to be able to fight, on Netflix, on TV. Where are you in the card?
So I'll be the 4th fight of the night. So I think that'll probably be somewhere around 5 or 6, which is nice. So I can watch the rest of the fights after.
How many fights are there?
I think there's maybe about 12.
Okay, so.
Yeah, 12 or 15. It's a good freaking card, man.
Who's the final fight of the night?
I think they're gonna do Diaz and Perry as the final fight of the night.
Okay.
I think Rousey and Carano will be co-main.
Okay.
Pretty sure. I don't know how that's gonna work, but then I know for on the other main card, or on the third fight before the main event, is Francis Ngannou.
Okay.
One of the hardest punchers in UFC or
Yeah.
in MMA. So that's gonna be exciting to watch too.
And you're going to be there in the locker room with those guys. And
yeah, I was already thinking about that. I'll be with it'll be fun.
How are you going to be in that moment where all of a sudden the stage is so much bigger than before? How do you handle that, or how do you prepare yourself for that stage and allowing that faster heartbeat to propel you instead of take away?
Yeah, no, nothing changes. For me, I look at this as like a business, and I'm a brand, and this is gonna change nothing about my fight style. I'm gonna go out there and fight the way I train, and go and get that win. However, on the other side is taking advantage of the opportunities at hand. I don't get it twisted. I wouldn't say to take it out of context, but quiet mouths don't get fed sometimes. People don't turn on these MMA fights to just watch, a quiet guy walk out and win like a point striking contest. They want to see blood, they want to see entertainment, and I intend to provide that to the people, because I feel like that's gonna elevate the brand. It's gonna elevate me, But you heard, I put 110% into the training. Just on the back end, this is something that really gives you a lot of pull in the industry. Having fans, filling seats, having a good Instagram. And then, of course, people like you that are supporting me. It allows me to grow my brand more and, show people, honestly, show the kids, man, like chase your dreams. A prime example, just an embodiment of.
I don't know how many moms are like, hey, kid, go chase your dream. follow what Jake's
Just
doing
not that
right
one.
now. Yeah. Go shoot some basketball. I'm gonna watch this fight. We're not gonna do that. As you prep, you've had some training with like Daryl Christian and some other guys. How much is your own technique, your own abilities evolving each fight that you go into? You know, you're 6-1 when you're hopefully 20-1. Like what's that evolution of knowledge and skill?
Well, first of all, Daryl Christian's just been absolutely fantastic to work with. I've been seeing him about once a week, and he's helped me kind of tailor in some of my wrestling for this guy. And I can't say much about what we're doing. However, it's
I don't want you to. I'd rather you win.
very good stuff, man. I got a lot of respect for him. And I'm over my team right now, Team Body Shop. I'm working with very closely with a lot of those guys, Joey Davis, AJ McKee, Adrian Segovia. These guys helping push me, and I just feel like there's nothing like it when you got such a close bond with these guys. They really want to see you win. It's hard to come by, and especially in business, man. Like as I look at it, find the people that take care of you and keep them close.
Yeah, 100%. We end every podcast where you get to ask me a question. So ask whatever question you want to ask.
All right, so when are we going to race?
You say when.
No, I'm setting myself up right now.
Yeah.
No cameras,
as long as we're not wrestling when we're done. I don't think I can get you tired enough.
Billy's like, we'll set up the race after the fight. So.
Yeah. What do you think you're going to run what do you think you could run a mile in?
I think the fastest I've done is 5:12.
Okay.
That's my fastest mile. But 3 miles, my fastest would be, I think 18 minutes, 6-minute miles. 12, 18, yeah, it's about 6-minute miles. But I'm sure. Well, you got to tell me your mile time.
Well, all time like 4:02, but
Jeez.
2 weeks ago 4:49. So I raced up a couple.
So the guy just rolled out of bed.
Not bad for
4:49.
49 years old. Turning
Jeez.
50 this year, so older. But yeah, so we can race whenever you want to race.
Yeah,
That's
no,
the
of
easy
course.
question.
It'd be my pleasure.
What else you got?
Yeah. No, I mean, I really admire everything you've done, man, with Bryson Financial. You got the podcast. So tell me, what exactly, I know you mentioned it earlier, but what exactly got you into this industry, and what do you like about it? What connects you with like the people that you work with?
Yeah. It's unique. My dad was in the life insurance business, and I always say he glamorized it, because when I was a kid, I'd go to his conventions and I'd see all these, trophies and success, and they do a good job of incentivizing in that business, a very good job. But I didn't really realize what it was like to be in that business, and I started up in the Bay Area with Merrill Lynch, doing kind of some investment banking meets retail, and it was fun, but it was a big company. And when I came and joined the family business, I didn't realize my dad had retired about 6 years prior. And so it was just kind of my dad, my brother's soon-to-be wife, and his assistant at the time. And the first thing I said was like, what did I get myself into?
Yeah.
But then the second part, it was like, I'm gonna make this work. And I had a lot of pride in what he'd created, even though he had been kind of the top and had been retired at the time. It was a good perspective of what he did. At the same time, my mom was a successful residential realtor. So I had two really good mentors that kind of put expectations on me. When I did dumb shit in junior high and got in trouble, like, they would look at me like, what are you doing? Like, why are you wasting time? And then, I went and run track at Santa Barbara. Santa Barbara at the time was a pretty good party school. But, I wouldn't drink a drop of alcohol from January 1 until the end of the season, sometime in June. And so it came down to like some way I had expectations placed on me by friends and family, specifically mom and dad. And then I learned how much failure sucked and how much I didn't like it, maybe from being bullied as a kid too, or some of those things. And how much I enjoyed success and putting myself around better people. And so this business has been fun in the fact that I get to honor a legacy from a family business. And in today's world, a lot of people, the chip on my shoulder when I left Merrill Lynch and I came here was like, you're going to the family business. That's easy.
Yeah.
Like they thought that I was just going to get handed things. And it couldn't have been more opposite. My dad was a hard ass, and I was saying this to my kids the other day, like in 2004, I found, because we just moved offices, where my dad recommended all the increases in the company, and he recommended I was like 34,000 of salary and no increase, so it was reverse nepotism, if you will. But it gave me a chip on my shoulder, because I remember the secrets or the whispers of people being like, you're going there because your dad. Or when I had early success, I knew Long Beach is a hard town. Long Beach, you don't always have people that want you to win. Sometimes, sometimes they want to discount you, that I was successful because of my dad. But it propelled me. It just gave me a chip. Like, fuck you, I'll show you. Like, this is where I'm going to go. Yeah. And I wouldn't take any of that back.
Like, talking comes from all the same group of people too, well, it's a very elevated place for you to be in, respectful, especially from someone else like myself who's had the family business opportunity. I worked for my family business. We got a restaurant in Hawaii, and man, it's the same thing. You hear it all the time.
Yeah.
But it's so hard to get along with your dad. He's like the only one. I'm the only one he could yell at. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
it's funny. My son, I coached their soccer team, and we were talking the other day, and he's like, "Dad, you used to make me run after practice because I was late." And I was the one that drove him to practice. So was it him that was late, or was it me late? I don't know, but we were late, so he was running.
We're doing it together.
And so I have to be conscious, though, that I'm not so hard on my kids that my dad was on me, because while that was good and got me to where I am, I'm always finding that healthy balance of, I want to have expectations on them. I want them to be good kids, but I also don't want them to have to live through some of the stuff I lived through.
I respect that a lot. Yeah.
There's no recipe. There's no secret recipe. Just like winning a fight, you can do all the things and something funky happens, but
everyone wants the secret answer. Yeah.
Yeah. But your odds go up exponentially by doing the right things, by doing the right crafts. It's been super fun having you on. I've got so much more respect seeing how focused you are for this fight than any fight video I've seen or anything. So I think the world's going to be excited to see what you bring in May and live on TV and where you go from here.
Well, thank you again, and appreciate your support. And I think the questions you asked are fantastic. I think I could really resonate with you on a lot of that. So thank you again, my friend. I appreciate that.
You got it.